I'm Kristen Andre, founder and chief strategist of Andre Consulting Group. I founded my company almost 10 years ago because I love helping people not only succeed, but thrive in their careers and their lives. So many times I meet amazing people who have so much more potential than what they're utilizing. As I engage with them, there seems to be a common theme: the limits they place on themselves. Throughout this podcast series, we're going to visit some incredible people who have created more intentional lives for themselves, those who've had that no limits moment where they chose to grow and they put things in motion to help them do so. We will focus on how you can break through limits. We will equip you with strategies to help you lead a more intentional life, and we will have a lot of fun along the way. So let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here today with Wendy Watkins of Mind, Body, and Business with Wendy Watkins. So, Wendy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Kristen.
I'm glad to have you. Glad to have you. All right, so we met a few years ago when I heard you speak, because at the time, the book may have been out a while. You have a book called The Joy Factor Recipe Book.
Yes.
And I was so intrigued with that because I don't think a lot of people really take time to do things that just are fun and that bring joy to them. So what got you into this whole mind, body business and finding the joy?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. Let's just jump right in.
Let's go. No.
So for me, I think for a good amount of my life, I spent looking for joy on the outside, right? And was looking for things that did not create sustainable joy for me. I actually call those like my sex, drugs, and rock and roll years, you know?
Okay.
And so
lots of movies made about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So
definitely.
Okay.
And I think lots of us have experienced that part of our life as well, you know, in our younger years, our 20s, our 30s, for some people, even in their 40s and 50s, still looking for like, what is it that makes me happy? And I realized, I was very successful in sales. I was working with Aveda at the time, one of their first $1 million salespeople. And even when I got that recognition and received the Master of the Arts Award, I drove home and that external source of joy started to wane immediately. And it didn't take long from there for me to start to begin my quest for sustainable joy. What is it that brings lasting joy from the inside out versus the outside in?
I think
that was when I started writing the book.
Yeah, sustainable joy. I like that term a lot because I think you're spot on. So many things that we think make us happy, they're so fleeting. Like we feel good for a minute and then they're gone. You know, and not just the sex, drug, and rock and roll reference. I mean, it's been a long time since my 20s. I'm not saying I did all those things, but mom and dad, if you're listening. But most of the things that we think of that are happy and fun times, they're quick and they're over with. And then
for a lot of people, and that's all fine. If you think of happiness or I'm going to throw out the term flourishing, because that's another term in my speaking and in my coaching. I like to teach people the flourishing advantage. And this is about that blend of hedonistic happiness, right? The things that bring us happy, that emotional happiness, the going out to dinner with the friends, the going on vacation. But tying that with the eudaimonic piece of happiness. This is what Aristotle coined as being connected to what brings you purpose, passion, and meaning in life.
Okay.
So when you can have the combination of, let's have a great dinner, but also be aware and committed to what brings you passion and meaning and weave that into your life, then you'll find that you'll have more sustainable joy.
And I think a lot of times, I get that. And a lot of times that has to do with others as well. Because if we can share what brings us, what we have passion around with others, and we've got a community of like-minded people, that makes it easier to continue weaving that in.
Yes, community is a big part of that. And, this happiness piece is so interesting because it's not happiness or joy just for the sake of.
Right.
There's couple of reasons that it's important, Kristen, is because there have been so many studies recently around how our level of happiness and joy impacts our productivity.
Yep.
It impacts our level of engagement and our health. So it's not just about being happy just to put a smiley face on,
Right.
but to really, get the most out of your life and truly enjoy the journey.
Yeah. And how many people do you think really do that? Because I know I come across people and they do. There'll be those bubbly people. I've known a few of them. I have a lot of friends and clients that are that bubbly personality, and they are genuinely happy. But I've
Yes.
known people throughout my life that you're like, oh my gosh, how cute are they? Just little peppy, and they're
Yes.
miserable. And even to this day, I can think of a couple of my friends that they hate what they do for a living, and
Yeah.
it just seems like a miserable place to be. They
Yeah.
can't. It's hard to find joy when a large part of your world is kind of dragging you down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
really
true.
big about finding your passion and finding a career and a job that you love and that you can give back and use your gifts to help others. But a lot of people
Absolutely.
can't do that.
Well, I think a lot of people are waking up to that they have an option to do that.
Right.
And, what's interesting is we're all born with a certain happiness set point, right?
Okay.
So, like you're saying, some people are born and they are just naturally happy
Yep.
and joyful
I
and
am not one of those people.
right. And you just want to smack them
I
sometimes,
know,
right? It's just
exactly.
like- and then, there are others that it's a little bit more challenging. But the beautiful thing to know, if we look at our lives in this 100% realm, that 50% of our happiness comes from our happiness set point, like genetically
Okay.
where we were born, not where we were born, but born with that certain level of happiness.
Okay.
10% comes from outside influences, our job, our relationships, our financial status, such like that. 40% of our happiness is based on the things that we can do to increase our joy factor.
Oh, well, that's all right. That's good news. I feel like I'm not the peppy person. I think a lot of people might think I am, but I'm somewhere in the middle. So the fact that 40% is controllable is awesome.
Absolutely. 40% is controllable. And also know that happiness, we all present it in different ways, right? So peppiness doesn't have to always be an
Exactly.
indicative sign of happiness.
Right.
Right. And there are many different levels. But the work that I'm doing in the world is about teaching people that happiness happens. And if you have the positivity practices in your life, just like any other practice, right? I know your girls are so into martial arts,
Yep,
right? And
yep.
they practice regularly and they perfect it. It's the same with happiness, right? That if you want to have more joy in your life, it's finding those practices that you weave in consistently, and that will raise your joy factor.
And I don't think people, I don't know. I'm guessing that most of the people listening aren't practicing happy. So what, I think it's something until you just said that, I'm like, do I practice it? Do I do things that make me happy? But I don't know if it's, and I'm assuming, and I put a lot of things purposefully in my life and my calendar, my schedule that do bring me joy. But
yes,
if somebody's not doing that already, how do you do that?
Yes, great question. Great question. So that's the essence of the mind body business philosophy, right?
Okay.
So there are three areas that you could look at. Mindset, of course. Body is more about self-care and boundaries, and then your business. So if I share one for mindset, because that's one that we all have, right? We all deal with mindset. So one thing that you can do, typically, when we complete our day at the end of the day, and whether you're a business owner or you have a job, you're a mom, you're a doctor, it doesn't matter, that at the end of the day, we typically look at the day and think of all the things that we've not completed, that we haven't gotten done, right? And that lowers your joy factor because you feel like you're on the hamster wheel. And honestly, right, the to-do list is never done. It is just never done. So instead of taking time to think about what you didn't complete, I'll point my clients to think about what went well for their day.
Okay.
And to take a minute, and it's a beautiful practice at the dinner table as well, instead of going around and saying, how was your day? And that opens the rabbit hole to a lot of negativity, to ask what went well. And what starts to happen at first, it's kind of like you may get that Scooby-Doo look from whoever
I've done that with my kids. I say, tell me the best thing that happened to you today. Nothing, but it gets better than a yes or no answer. They do come up with something, but
you just have to keep. So tell me one thing, one thing that went well, that made you feel good. And what starts to happen as you practice that is that the neural pathways in your brain start to shift, and you'll start to more naturally look at what's going well versus what's not going well.
Exactly. Okay.
And so then as you start to put your attention on the things that are going well, attraction principles kick in and more things start going well in your life.
Right.
So it's a wonderful practice to both feel good in the moment about, oh, wow, that went really well. I did accomplish a lot today, or I did make a positive impact. And then you start to see that more often.
It's funny. I started a new journal. Like I did a gratitude journal last year. I had a lot of my private coaching clients that I felt would benefit. So I had a bunch, and I'd, give them out to them. And I found a new one this year that a girlfriend of mine had turned me on to. It's called the 5-Minute Journal. But you have to do it twice a day. In the morning, I write down 3 things I'm thankful for, which is typically what a gratitude journal would be. And then I also have to write down, there's 3 spots that say, what would make today amazing? And but what was really interesting is so you start visioning, like, well, I'd love this. I'd love to book a speaking gig or pick up a new client, or, have my daughter have a great day at school, whatever it is. But what I found is when I started writing them down, the first week I did it, most of it was happening. And it was the coolest thing. I'm like, this is fantastic. So I'm like, I should just, it was like an order page. I could do that. But it did make you focus at the start of the day on here's what I'd love. And at the end of the day, you do the same thing. 3 great things that happen. It does have a section at the bottom that says, what could you have done better? What could have made today even better, type of thing. But it was a great way to keep, like you're saying, just practice it and figure out, all right, what are the positives that you want to have happen, and what are the positives that did happen? Keeps you in a good headspace, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. So, and then you're just more compelled to bring in more good practices and do more good things, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And so that's the mind part. The body and the business, I mean, it all rolls together, right?
Oh, well, of course it does. So the body, it's around self-care. And a big piece that my clients struggle with, I'm sure yours do as well, is time management, right?
Absolutely.
How to get it all done.
Yep.
And I've kind of taken a new shift on that, because I know you can't manage time. There are 24 hours in a day, and you can only do what you can do.
Right.
It's really more about you management, how you manage you. So starting to look at, number one, why is everyone so busy, right? I mean, it seems to be a badge of honor, right? How you doing? I'm so busy.
Right.
And people are stressed out. They're overwhelmed. They're anxious, all of these things. I came up with an acronym that's speaks to that, to busy.
Okay.
And it's because you say yes.
I knew that was coming. Love it. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And so around the self-care, it's learning how to create boundaries that support you in looking at what you're saying yes to and looking at what you're saying no to. And when people could start to become more conscious of that, slowly but surely, once again, it's not about just walking around saying no, 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 but it's really being more conscious about what you are saying yes to.
I think that's absolutely huge. And we don't say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things nearly enough. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to dive a little deeper with Wendy, talk about a few more ways we can find that joy factor, and then also what the flip side of that may look like. So we'll be back in just a minute. Hey everyone, it's Kristen. Be sure and visit my website at www.andregroup.com. That's www.andree nolimitsgroup.com. And while you're there, be sure to download my white paper, Top 10 Reasons Your Business Isn't Growing Fast Enough. Now get out there and create your no limits moment. Welcome back, everyone, to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are chatting with Wendy Watkins of Mind, Body, and Business with Wendy Watkins. And before the break, we started talking about schedules and how we are all so busy. And give us your acronym for busy again.
Busy, because you said yes.
I think that's fantastic. So we talked about saying yes. People are saying yes to too many things. So let's talk about saying no a little bit. What are people not saying no to that they should? Because I've had this discussion with girlfriends and clients of mine. And, you know, when I share with you, one of my closest friends is just busy. And it's all volunteer work, which is wonderful. But she's making herself miserable on a lot of days because her schedule is so intense that it's just, she's running herself ragged.
Yeah.
Because she's not saying no.
Yeah. And it's hard to know, everybody has their different reasons for saying yes. Some people are people pleasers, right? That they've just grown up knowing that they're people pleasers. Other people don't have a compass that they could use to guide them in making decisions. And that compass can be based on your values or your passions. So when people have a bit more clarity about what really brings them fulfillment in life versus thinking what they should do and wanting to make other people happy,
right,
that's when they start to make a positive shift. So knowing those values and passions are key, because then they help you to look at, oh, wait, is this in alignment with what's most important to me right now in my life?
Right. And I think that's huge. I always, the barometer I use for myself is if the person or the activity is not helping me grow or bringing me closer to my goals or making me, become the person I want to be, you got to really take a look at whether or not that's something you should be doing, somebody you should be spending time with or anything.
Excuse me. Bless you. That one came right in. So
happens.
Yes. Those decision points are key. And honestly, Kristen, even when some people know what they're using, values or passions, it still can be hard to say no. So the practice that I offer to people is, first you have to look at, what are you saying yes to? When you're saying yes to something, what are you saying no to?
Exactly.
So, using your friend, if you say yes to the PTA meeting at 7:00 at night, are you saying no to the commitment you made to have dinner with your family or your downtime or whatever it is?
Right.
So taking a minute, that's the thing. When someone asks you something,
right,
especially if you're a leader in life and people want you to be on their team, then you have to be able to first take a breath.
Yep.
Literally take a breath before you just say yes.
Yep.
And one of the tools that I offer my clients is to be able to say, I'm so grateful that you asked me to do this, but I've got to take a look at my calendar and let me get back to you tomorrow about that.
And I tell clients that all the time. And when I tell them that, they go, oh, it's like no one realized that was an option, because we're so used to going, yes, no, yes, no. Well, we really are used to going, yes, 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 especially the people pleasers. But it is okay to say, let me think about it and get back to you.
Yeah. And let me get back to you tomorrow, and then just follow up. And then, it's also okay to say, I'd really love to help you with that, but I can't do it tomorrow, but I am available in 2 weeks to be able to help you with that.
Right. And understanding that it's okay to decline something or to push it out. Yeah.
It is. And when you're speaking from your heart and you're being honest, yes, that person on the other end may be disappointed, but they also respect your honesty and will respect your boundaries. And you're setting a beautiful example for other people to start to look at what they're saying yes to and what they're saying no to.
And it has to align with your values and what's important to you. Because there are a lot of people that are, I love volunteer work, and I want to spend some time talking about the volunteer work you're doing, but there are a lot of people that either volunteer to help or they say yes to work projects. I used to be guilty of that when I was younger, hugely guilty, because, the phrase is always, if you want to get something done, give it to somebody who's busy, because they just work. And when I was probably in my I'd say 20s, definitely 20s, probably even into my early 30s, I would take on everything. And I remember one time one of the CEOs that I was reporting to, she gave me a project to work on. She goes, this does not have to be done in the next 10 minutes, because I would do something and like, all right, what's next? And we're so used to things firing at us so fast that we don't just pause and slow down and say, all right, let me think about how this fits into the big picture of what my overall goals are.
Yes. Yeah. And I also think it's important to notice the time of life you're in.
Sure.
The speed of your activities changes in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I have a lot of clients in their 50s and 60s that are trying to operate at the same speed they did in their 40s.
Right.
And it's a natural path if you're feeling called to slow down, because the beautiful thing is that you can be even more productive going at a slower pace, because there's a big difference between being busy and producing results.
Absolutely.
And so that's really the place to look. Okay, you may be busy, but if you're producing the results you want and you feel good about that pace, then great. But if you're busy, your calendar's full, and you're still not producing the results you want, then it's time to take a closer look.
You need to look at it, because most of the times I think people are busy for busy's sake. A lot of my clients tend to either be in the financial world or women executives and business owners, and I dissect their calendars like nobody's business, because I'm looking at what are they saying yes to and what are they saying no to. And frequently I'm finding that the busy work is not leading them toward their goals. It's not letting them hit their production levels or whatever they're trying to achieve. It's just stuff. And then once we lower the water level a little bit, and then they feel like they've got more breathing room, their productivity goes through the roof.
Yes. Yeah, I think that busy work provides instant gratification.
Right. It's like you said at the beginning, that immediate fix, if you will.
We love that. I tell my clients, if you want instant gratification, go vacuum.
I do love the vacuuming. Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably the only chore I like. I actually like the vacuum. It's very soothing. But all right. So what happens when people don't do this? What's the flip side?
Well, I mean, they're busy beyond belief, and they're going through their life feeling like something's missing, right? And for some people, that leads to depression, anxiety. Part of the reason that I got into doing the work that I'm doing as a coach and working with positive psychology and such like that is because I had my own struggles with finding my joy factor. Right. I was doing all the right things, but I was not feeling what I needed to be feeling. And that led me to depression, anxiety, and suicide ideation.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's a big part of your work now, is to make sure that others don't follow that path or have that same.
Yeah. And I'm not a therapist. So, that sometimes it crosses lines, right? So talking about depression and anxiety, but yet people have these episodical issues of depression and that are coming from not feeling their emotions or suppressing this. Like, I'm so busy. See, here's what happens. Like, you have successful people, right? That are going through life and they have so much to be grateful for, but yet they're still not happy.
Right.
Because they're not living their life aligned with their values and such like that. And they won't allow themselves to talk about it. They won't allow themselves to feel it. They'll numb it. And that was the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll for me, which we still see with a lot of people. And then they get to a point where now I'm not saying this is the extreme side, but we're seeing it more and more, is that they don't know how to deal with the feelings. They don't know how to deal with the pain. And so that's when we're seeing people starting to use suicide as a way out.
And which is just, it's heartbreaking, because it's not always easy to find joy on every day. We've got to, which is why I think these strategies and the things you're working with your clients is critical, just to make sure that people have the tools to, like, okay, not a good day, not in a good place. What can I do? But it does go back to aligning yourself with what's really important.
Yeah, yeah. And I do want to say, with my clients, I don't deal with people. This is like community work that I
Right.
do.
Right.
Outside.
Absolutely.
My
Yep.
clients are, excellent. They're doing well in life, but they realize something is missing.
Right. But those are the type of people that I feel like can help and can recognize when people aren't like that. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know that you always recognize when somebody's not finding their joy. That mask, I think sometimes people would on. So how do we help others? Not you've talked about strategies to find the joy, but how do we help others recognize for themselves?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is something that I am truly just learning so much about now. After Anthony Bourdain used suicide to end his life, it was a big wake up call for me because I had many years ago come to a point where I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live anymore. And I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of people deal with.
Sure.
It's not that they want to die, but they just can't handle whatever life has thrown them. And in that moment, that permanent solution solves a temporary condition.
Correct. Yep.
So it's about, I'm learning right now how to talk to people about seeing the signs in our friends and family members that things may be going awry because the numbers are increasing so much in people using suicide to end their problems, right? So one of the things that you can notice amongst people is that, say you have a good friend that, they work out all the time and you would meet them to work out regularly, or you have a weekly time you met for drinks or walks, and all of a sudden they start canceling. They start not showing up. And so we start thinking, especially in our world, well, they're busy, right? They're busy. They've got a lot of other things going on, and we don't check in.
So it's a withdrawal as opposed to being
Yes,
busy.
as people start to withdraw, and you'll notice that you may not notice because, like you say, they show up, and when they do show up, they're happy, but their behaviors start to change.
Okay.
That's when it's time to check in, to call, and not just assume they're busy and not just let them off the hook, but to call and say, hey, what's going on? I noticed that I haven't seen you at the gym,
Right.
or I haven't, our happy hours have kind of gone awry. What's going on?
And I think that's huge. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I think there's a great strategies to help find the joy in ourselves. But I also want to make sure that not only are we aware of the strategies to find joy, but we're aware of how to recognize when maybe the people that we love and that are important to us aren't finding that joy for themselves. So we'll be back in just a second. Hey everyone, check out my podcast, No Limits with Kristen Andre, on Tuesday nights at 7:30. We will tackle the things holding you back and the limits you set on yourself and equip you with some strategies to lead more intentional lives. Podcast launches every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on facebook.com/Andre Group. That's facebook.com/ANDREE Group. We'll see you there. Welcome back, everyone, to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are wrapping up our time with Wendy Watkins, and I appreciate you being here so much. And before we cut this last break, we were talking about the friends and the friends and the people that we have that are starting to withdraw and aren't showing as much joy as we'd like. So let's throw out a few. I want to tie it back into finding our own joy, but give me some resources. How do we help the people that we feel like might be withdrawing a little bit?
Yeah, it's a good thing to know. I mean, because of this epidemic, the suicide epidemic right now. So if you want to learn more about how to help this epidemic, you can go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's website. That's afsp.org.
Okay.
And on there are so many wonderful resources. There are talks that you could attend that allow you to look at how to save lives. There's a Out of the Darkness walk that happens in cities all over the world for survivors, parents, and such. But that is really the place to go and find the resources that you need.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for those of you guys watching us on live stream on Facebook, we'll post that in the show notes so you guys have a resource for it. So thank you for that, because I want to make sure people that aren't able to find that joy factor, or that may have just lost it for a little while, that we don't have that permanent solution to a temporary problem. But
it's okay. And if that's you, to any of you that are listening, it's okay.
Absolutely.
And just ask for help.
Absolutely.
Find the help, and someone is out there to listen to you and help you.
Yeah, because there's so many of us that know people, have personal experiences with it, that just people will help. So reach out. So as we look at that and we flip back over to joy and making sure that, or trying to put ourselves in a position where we don't get to that spot. So with the strategies we've talked about, I mean, what's the best thing? What would you say to the people listening that's the best things they can do to raise their joy factor?
Well, I'm gonna put out a couple things. So first thing is to notice when you wake up in the morning that you can set the tone for your day. You could wake up and think, something great is going to happen today, and then go on a treasure hunt to find that.
Oh, I like the treasure hunt. Yeah.
Yeah, to see if something great's going to happen. Always something good happens. And then going back at the end of the day to what we talked about earlier, the art of reflection, taking some time to reflect on what did go well. The little things or the big things that, as entrepreneurs, we tend to always think that, if we get the gig, get the speaking gig, get the client, that it has to be that. But it could be that I held the door open for an elderly person, or yesterday I helped an elderly person buy stamps on the automated machine. And you would have thought I wrote her a check for $100,000. She was so happy.
Right.
That raises my joy factor. So it's the little things as well as the big things that add up to move you towards being more joyful.
I think that's fantastic, because we do. You're spot on. We focus on myself. I'm guilty of this too. We focus on the big things. Oh, I got a new client. I landed a new speaking gig. But the hold the door pieces are great. I love the way you called it a treasure hunt, though. I really like the way you call it, because that just sounds fun. It's it's like, instead of what are you doing today? Oh, I'm going to the office. I got to see some clients. I'm going to say I'm going on a treasure hunt. Yeah. And so a joy treasure hunt. I like it.
Good.
Okay. So big and little things. So not just, because I feel like we look for the big joys, but we're ignoring those teeny little types of things.
Yeah. We get lost and also knowing that joy can also be contentment. You know, that just by being able to look around your life and going, wow, life is good.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference, because we live in a society that more is better.
Yep.
And that's not always true. So being able to find a contentment in your life and looking at what joy is to you, because it's different to you than it is to me.
Right.
And that when we can let go of comparison, then we're able to experience more joy in our life.
And I think that helps with other people too, is understanding what brings them joy may not be the same thing. I had this conversation the other night with one of my closest girlfriends, is we both have very different hobbies. Like very different hobbies. And, we were talking about it, and, I like shopping. I love accessories, I love things like that. Not that it needs to be a material thing, but she likes going to the casino. I don't go to the casino. I'm like, I could buy a pair of shoes with what, but the conversation, it sounds trivial, but what the conversation led to was the fact that what is fun for each of us and what excites us and what lowers our stress level and, brings us joy at the end of a week, a bad day, whatever, is totally different. And that was okay.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, your joy doesn't have to be the same joy that somebody else needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So I think for the challenge for everyone listening is to go on your treasure hunt, find your joy and write it down. Don't you think write it down at the end of the day? Take some time to reflect. You can either reflect it mentally, you can write it down, but talk about the joy that you found that was large or small, and kind of what it meant and how it made you feel.
Yeah, love that.
Love it. All right, so going on a treasure hunt. So Wendy Watkins of Mind, Body, and Business with Wendy Watkins, thank you so much for being with us. It was great talking with you. Thank you for raising our joy factor today. So it's good stuff to think about. So until next time, everybody, keep pushing through those limits, and we will see you soon.